and welcome to Growth Hackers, the program where we talk about how you can use digital to grow your business. I'm Godfrey Parkin, and today we're going to talk about something which is very low tech. I had a lot of people say to me, whenever you talk about digital and digital business and digital marketing, you start to talk about algorithms and artificial intelligence and programmatic advertising and all sorts of esoteric things that are very high tech and fairly specialized. What about ordinary businesses? What about people that don't have a tame geek on their staff who can do this stuff for them? What about people that can't afford an agency? What are some of the tools that we can use to help promote our business without necessarily needing to be an IT specialist? So I thought what I'd do is I'd talk about one of the oldest digital tools that is available to everybody that most people think they understand and know how to use, and that is email. Email is probably still one of the most powerful tools available to anybody from a marketing point of view. It gives you a fantastic return on investment. It doesn't cost a lot of money to put together. In the United States, they say that your average ROI on an email campaign is 50 to 1, which basically means for every dollar you spend, you're making 50. That's pretty good returns, and you can't really get that on anything else. The problem with email is that people have got so used to it that they think of it as not being particularly special and not being particularly interesting. And also, because we get so many pieces of spam coming into our inboxes, we tend to think that most people are just immune to being contacted by email. That is so far from the truth. There was a period, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when feature phones were the big thing, when doing an email or trying to answer an email on your phone was a really complicated thing because you had to punch a number button 3 times to get to the letter that you wanted to get to, and most people just deleted emails rather than reading them on their phone because it was just such a problem. But now that we've got smartphones, which are really easy to read and really, really easy to type on, and in fact you can have them talk to you and you can talk back to them, it's become such an easy thing to check your emails and to send an email that there's been this massive renaissance in the way emails are being used by marketers. And it's something that most small businesses are perfectly capable of doing if they do it well. Like a lot of things in life, of course, because we feel familiar with the tool, we tend to use it badly. Okay, so there are some basic rules and guidelines that I want to go through, which talk about how email can be used really well and talk about how most people are using it really, really badly. So if you think about email, there are a number of stages in any email campaign that you've got to get right. First of all, you've got to have a list. There's no point in running an email campaign if you've got nobody to send it to. You've got to be able to be sure that your emails get delivered to the people on that list. You've got to make sure that when they receive the email, they actually open it. And once they open it, you've got to make sure that they read on it and click on it or take whatever action you're asking them to do. And once they've clicked on it to go to your website or to your e-commerce site or to call you on the phone, you've got to make sure that you can then turn that interest into business. So there's a process involved, as there is with most things digital. And you can't afford to just do the one thing and assume that all the rest will just kind of fall into place and happen. So let's talk a little bit about each one of those stages. Lists are one of the most important things to get right. You need to have an opportunity to gain people's permission to contact them at every point of contact that you have with them. So if you're running a physical business, you really need to have permission forms available to people. If you're a restaurant, you need to have an invitation on a till slip which says, please sign up here with your email address and give us permission to contact you. You've got to give people a reason to do that. So you've got to tell them why, whether it's you're going to be notified about promotions, whether you're going to be given extra information about new products or services. Whatever the reason is, there's got to be some value that you're promising to deliver in order for people to give up the privacy of their email address. But you've got to do that. And there are so many opportunities to capture people's email addresses in the real world. Whether it's a salesperson calling on a customer and getting them to sign a little form which says, yes, please add me to your mailing list. Whether it's adding it to the packaging or the till slips that you actually issue with products that people have bought. Whether it's a form that people can fill in and email or fax to you. Or whether it is on your website or your blog, or whether even you have a form attached to your Facebook page. There are so many different ways of getting people's email addresses and permission to contact them. Permission is very important because in reality, you don't want to be wasting your time and your money pitching a product or a service to somebody who doesn't want to hear from you. That's foolish. And so it's more important with your list that you have a good list of willing recipients than that you have a huge list of people that really don't care about you. I had a client a few years ago who proudly told me that she had more than 1 million email addresses on her database that she had collected over the last 10 years, and that she was pushing out to people on a daily basis, you know, a little bit at a time. The problem with that sort of list is that the average email list decays at a rate of 30% a year. That means if you've got 100,000 names on your list, a year later, 33,000 of them are dead. People have moved on, they've changed their email address, they're just going to bounce, they're not going to get through to people. 2 years on, 66,000 are gone. 3 years on, you may as well throw away most of your list. So keeping archived lists is completely pointless. You need to make sure that your list is constantly fresh and updated. And it's important that that list comes from a source that you actually trust. So if you collect them yourself, that's fantastic. But you can also rent lists. You can rent a marketing list from just about anybody. There are lots of agencies out there. In South Africa, probably, there are 3 or 4 that have got control over a lot of other people's lists. So if you're a magazine publisher, for example, you would go to a list broker and say, hey, rent out my list to people who actually want to contact my subscribers. And you, as a business, can then go to that list broker and say, I want to be able to contact people that subscribe to Better Homes and Garden and cooking magazines in the Cape Town area because I'm running a restaurant in the Cape Town area. And you can do that. And then all you have to do is pass your email, the content of your email on to the list broker, and they will mail it for you. You never get to see the email addresses, and you never get to get your hands on them, but you have the access to them, and they don't cost you, they cost you less than a postage stamp would cost you, if anybody remembers postage stamps. So getting a list is an important thing to do, and making sure that it's a fresh list and it's a relevant list is really kind of important. Obviously, you've got to take into account some of the legal issues associated with emailing, and every country has its legislation, which is essentially anti-spam legislation, which says that if you've got somebody's email list, you may not send them information unless they've actually asked for it, and if you get accused of being a spammer, you can find yourself in a fair amount of trouble these days. So think about your list. We'll come back to that list later on. Then you need to think about, well, what is my strategy? Okay, we always come back to this idea of what's in it for my business. What's in it for my customer? Why would a customer subscribe to my list in the first place? Why would I want to have them subscribe to my list? What am I going to do with that information, and how am I going to turn that into business? And your objectives can be manifold. Okay, typically what you're trying to do is you're trying to promote your business. So you're either looking to build awareness and affection for your brand. You're trying to get people to actually respond to a promotional offer. You're trying to get people to pick up the phone and call you. You want people to come into your store or to your premises. Whatever your goals are, you need to understand what that is, because that in turn comes back and dictates to you how you go about structuring this. Because structuring your email campaign is all about content and timing and frequency. Those factors really matter. If you are fortunate enough to have subscribed to any one of the major retail chains, you'll find that you get emails once or twice a day with really urging messages saying this is a 2-hour sale, you can save 20% off if you buy Converse right now, or over the next 4 days come in over the weekend and you can get 15% off Levi branded products. Those kinds of things can be really annoying if you are not intending to get promotional emails. If you're just looking for feel-good branding about hiking or running or athletics. So you need to be sure that you're getting the right promise, and that the promise attaches to the content that you're actually pushing out. There's nothing wrong with sending out daily emails if people are expecting daily promotional emails. But don't send those to people that are expecting a monthly newsletter on how to go hiking, because you're just going to make enemies along the way. So get your strategy right and get your thinking right. Then you need to take a look at your list and decide who is going to get what. All right. Typically what a small business will do is it'll say, I've got a list of 5,000, 10,000 names, and I'm just going to blast the same message out to all of them. You can do that. No harm in doing that, but it's not optimal. optimally, you want to be able to push the right message to the right people based on their interests. So if you are a sporting goods chain, for example, you don't want to be sending a bland message about athletics out to people. If you know that some people on your list are real football fanatics, you want to be able to send a message about football gear to those people. If others are really into gymming, then you want to send a gymming message to those people. So segmenting your list is an important part of getting the best value out of your list, because that helps you to provide a relevant and interesting message to people, which means that they'll keep on opening your emails and hopefully responding to them. Okay, so mailing out is an important component. Getting your emails to the other side is equally important. Let me explain to you why that doesn't happen a lot. Let me go back to this colleague, this client of mine who had a million emails. I asked her how she was mailing to that list. And she said, well, we're actually using Outlook, and I've got people that spend all day just pushing out emails to that list, and they'll put about 50 or 60 email addresses in the BCC list, so nobody gets to see those addresses, and they'll push the button and they'll push send. And they'll do that day after day after day. And I asked, well, how's that working out for you? And she said, well, we don't really know. We're not getting much response from it. And the reason for that is that probably 90% of that list was dead anyway, so those emails were just bouncing. But they've got no data. Okay, if you send emails, you don't have any data unless you're using a dedicated email server or email service that gives you data. You really want to know how many people did my email actually reach, how many of those opened it, and how many of those clicked on the links inside my email. You can't do that using Outlook or using iPhone Mail or using Samsung Mail or any of the other more commercial mail send and receive packages, because they're not dedicated to doing that. So you need to use a tool that allows you to bulk mail and gives you detailed insight into what's happening with those mail. There are many out there. The one that I'm particularly fond of and have been using for many, many years is called MailChimp. And MailChimp.com, an American service, is literally brilliant. It's so easy to use, and it's free for up to, I think, 2,000 email addresses. So if you've got a small database, you can use all of their tools, all of their templates, all of their tracking, all of their analysis, all of their segmentation tools for nothing. So it's a really good place to start, and there's very little learning curve, and there's some great education built into it, which helps you to actually get the best value out of using that tool. But what happens then if you send through something like MailChimp is, after you've sent your email campaign, you can see immediately how many people have opened it, how many emails were bad, how many bounced. The system will delete the ones that are bad addresses automatically for you, so you don't have to bother about it. If people unsubscribe from your email, the system will automatically unsubscribe them from your list, so you don't have to bother about it. And you can see which links people clicked on within your email. So you can actually see what calls to action are actually triggering people's interest and getting them to come to your website or to do whatever it is that you're hoping they will do when they click those links. So don't be mistaken and use something like an Outlook email package or a native mail package on your phone. It's not a smart thing to do. It doesn't give you any feedback. And if you don't have feedback, you've got no way of optimizing the next campaign. You've got no way of polishing and getting better and better results as you go forward. The reason that so many of your emails don't get through, and in many cases that's a very high percentage, is because there are so many spam protections built into the system worldwide that something which smells of spam just doesn't make it through the network to the desktop of the person that you've emailed it to. And most people don't realize that, but when you send an email, it doesn't just go straight to the person. It goes through a series of things, from your ISP to various aggregators to various bulk senders, and every single one of those to your recipient's ISP, to your recipient's desktop, and every one of those has a series of barriers put in place to filter out anything which might be nasty in any way. So filter out malware and filter out spam. So in fact, it's a miracle that any emails actually arrive when you look at how vicious some of those systems can be in terms of filtering. And you need to know whether you're getting through. One of the main reasons that your emails don't get through is because they are worded badly, or because they've got bad code in them, or because they've got bad grammar in them, or they've got any one of the multiple triggers which says, wow, this is probably a spam message. And you need to know what's working and what's not working so that you can get in there and fix it. There are a number of things which you need to avoid doing, if at all possible. As a small business person, you certainly don't want to be sending an email that has got all capitals in the subject line. You don't want to be sending an email that has got gaps between the letters in the subject line. You don't want to send an email whose subject line begins with the word free. All of those are big triggers to the spam filters which go, professionals don't do this, let's not pass this on to the person who's going to be the recipient, and the recipient never actually gets the email that you've sent, no matter how innocent it actually is. So you're sending, and your data is now coming back, and you're seeing who's actually received it. The next challenge, and probably the biggest challenge, is getting your email opened. Most people these days get several hundred emails arriving in their inbox every single day. Most people check that on their phone while they're driving, which is not the best practice in the world, but nobody's paying a lot of attention to what they're seeing in their email, and they make a very snap decision in a split second based on who it's from and what the subject line is, whether or not they're going to delete it or open it. So the challenge that you have really is to make your subject line as compelling as possible without sounding spammy. Okay? The subject line is the single most important contributor to success in an email campaign. Don't be bland in what you're doing. Don't be boring. Don't make it all about you. Make it all about what the content of the email is. So think about this. If you're standing in that temptation alley at the supermarket while you're waiting to pay for your stuff, and you've got chocolates on the one side and magazines on the other side, and you see a magazine and you pick it up not because of the date of the magazine or the title of the magazine. You pick it up because of the promise of what's inside the magazine, and that comes from a story that is highlighted on the cover of that magazine. Okay. You're not going to buy the Getaway magazine if its cover is white and there's just a black lettering which says Getaway Magazine July. Doesn't tell you anything about the experience you're going to have by purchasing it. So don't send out a newsletter which says July newsletter in your subject line. That's not interesting. What's the main story? Don't send out a letter which says today's promotion. Send out a letter which says get 25% off Converse 4 hours only. That's what gets people to say, I need to open this and I need to open it now. Think through the impact of that. And you can, if you're using a tool like MailChimp, you can go back over your past emailers and you can look at your past subject lines and see which ones got the best open rate and which ones didn't, and you can learn lessons about what's working for your target market as you go forward. So experiment with it. If you have the time and the inclination, send out, split your database into a main database and a test database. And that test database could be maybe 5% of your list. Split that into two and send a different subject line to each of those two sectors and see which one gives you the best open rate. And then send the bulk emailer to the one that gives you the best result. That's a very, very simple way of literally growth hacking the response to your emails. So your email has arrived, and people have opened it because it's got a really, really interesting subject line, and they know who it's from. Your brand should always be in the from section. And when you use a mail tool, it'll say, who do you want this to say that it comes from? Don't say that it comes from Jan van der Merwe. Don't say that this comes from Beatrice. Say that it comes from the brand or the company, then people know what it is and they will not automatically be suspicious about it and just delete it. Give people that identifier. So they open it and they look at it. What makes them then click on what you want them to click on? That's all about the quality of the content. Okay, so your content has to be designed. It has to be designed so that the core proposition is immediately obvious at a glance. Don't make people read through pages and pages before they can get to a proposition. You need to write your emails in what they call the inverse pyramid approach. Normally when we tell a story, we start with some information and we build it up, and we come to the conclusion, which is the base of the pyramid. When you're doing an emailer, you start with a conclusion. You say, this is what you need to do, and then this is why. Because people will read your first paragraph. They won't necessarily read anything beyond that if you haven't caught their attention. Also make sure that you have as many clickable links as possible inside your email without being completely ridiculous, obviously. Because the more clickable links or clickable buttons that you have in your email, the more clicks you will get. People need to have the opportunity to click at the point where the moment strikes them. And that's really important. Don't just stick one big button at the bottom of your email and expect people to scroll down to that and find the momentum to do something about it. So structuring your email, of course, is a lot more complex than that, and you need to make sure that your story and your proposition is clear and compelling and interesting and intriguing and also urgent, so that people don't go, well, I might look at this at the weekend. You want them to do it now. But don't overkill on it. Okay, the shorter your email, the more powerful it tends to be. And if you can't make your basic proposition available in 1 or 2 sentences, you probably don't have a proposition in the first place that's worth talking about. Now, if people click on the link, what happens? A lot of businesses will just send people to the home page of their website, which is not an optimal thing to do. If your proposition is all about, I am in the business of doing pre-holiday services to cars. This is my proposition, okay? I'm a garage, I maintain cars. I want to send an email out to local people saying, holidays are coming, bring your car in and I'll service it for you for a very discounted price. That's your proposition. Don't send them to the home page of your website, because that proposition may not exist on that page and people will be going, I clicked something about like a special deal and there's nothing where I am here, I'm out of here and I'm gone. Send them to the page that talks about that proposition. Send them to the landing page. It's called a landing page because they land on it. They get launched from an email and they land on a page in your website, and make sure that landing page is synchronized in terms of its content and its theme and its proposition to the content of your email. And then people will land on your website and say, wow, I'm glad I came here because this is exactly what I thought I would find. And they can then move through to wherever it is you want them to go to purchase, to book, to reserve, to make a phone call, to download a voucher, whatever call to action you really want people to respond to can be on that page or it can be on subsequent pages. Typically in marketing, we have a thing which we call a conversion funnel. A conversion funnel is a series of pages that you take people down. Landing page, next page, which is more information, third page might be the order form, fourth page might be the purchase form, and the last page might be the buy now button. That's called a funnel because you're trying to focus people's attention on the end result, which is converting them from being a visitor to being a buyer. Every single step along the way there, you have the opportunity to optimize. So think about it this way. If you can double the number of people who actually open your email. Okay, so say you're getting a 10% open rate, and you can double that to 20%, which is not an unusual open rate. And then you can double your click-through rate from the email, and then you can double your pass-through rate from your landing page, and maybe you can double a couple of other processes through to the final conclusion. What you're doing is you're getting multipliers. So you're getting 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and you can end up very easily getting 16 times the business from your email that you were getting before, simply because you were measuring what the performance was and doing what it takes to optimize the process for somebody who has seen your email and moved through the process. That's an incredible amount of leverage that you can get without being technical, without being some kind of genius, but just by paying attention to what is working and what is not working, and by changing the stuff which is clearly not working. If you get what is called a bounce rate of 90% on your landing page, that means 9 out of 10 people that click to come to your landing page, go to the page and then go and leave, you've got a problem on your landing page. You need to fix that. Okay, and you need to look at it and analyze it and say, well, what was the proposition? What were people's expectations when they came to this page? Are those expectations being fulfilled? Is it too complicated? Is it too simple? What can we do to change the imagery? What can we do to change the language? How can we tweak this so that we can actually reduce that bounce rate from 90% down to maybe 30 or 40%? And that then flows twice as many people through to the conversion process. So without data, you're powerless. If you're just pushing your emails out through Outlook, you've got no idea. You're just pushing emails and hoping for the best. You've got no way of optimizing. You've got no way of going in there and trying to fix what needs to be fixed and try to improve your email marketing processes. So email is one of those tools that we all think we know how to use, but there's some basic principles there that I've gone through which tell you that if you stick to the rules, if you stick to the guidelines, you can probably get much better value out of your efforts than you would if you just did it by going, bam, let's go, let's push that out there. So make sure that you're doing it right. Make sure that you're staying within the law in terms of what you're doing. Your recipients will hate you if you bombard them with stuff they were not expecting, and they might even report you. And if you get reported as a spammer up the line to ISPs, then that affects your reputation on the network, and that affects your ability to push out emails, even ordinary emails, to anybody who is out there. There's a lot more to email, but I think probably my advice to you is, if you're not doing email in any way which is vaguely professional right now, go onto MailChimp, open up an account. It'll cost you nothing if you've got less than 2,000 email addresses, and start to play with the tools and try to see how easy it can be to massively uplift the impact that you're having for your efforts in email marketing. That's all we have time for today. I look forward to seeing you on Growth Hackers again next time.